I'm Casey Kasem. Radio plays them, radio and records ranks them, and we count them down on Casey's Top 40. Well, now we're up to a Grammy Award-winning singer whose religious training led her to a life as the queen of benefit concerts. Her name is Bonnie Raitt, and she grew up in Southern California in a family of Quakers. The Quakers are also known as the Religious Order of Friends, a movement that was started in England in 1647 by a man named George Fox. Quakers believe in the inward nature of religion, of belief practiced without churches and ministries. Quakers are known for their simple style of living and their peaceful ways. There are about 200,000 Quakers in the world, and Bonnie Raitt was brought up as one of them. Instead of rebelling against her religion, like some young people do, Bonnie says the moral value she gained from being a Quaker made her want to right the wrong she saw around her in the world. Over the years, she's worked for a rainbow of causes. In the late 70s, for instance, she helped organize 5 concerts in New York's Madison Square Garden for an anti-nuclear group called Muse, Musicians for Safe Energy. She's performed benefits for Cesar Chavez and the United Farm Workers. She's worked for the Rhythm and Blues Foundation, of which she's a board member, an organization that fights for royalties for aging blues musicians. And she's spearheaded a series of concerts for a group called Sanctuary, a movement that works on behalf of Central American political refugees. Bonnie says, quote, "I get frustrated by the reluctance of people to do anything that isn't for their own good. As far as I'm concerned, my involvement is my life." This week, Bonnie Raitt is singing about another kind of involvement, the involvement of two people in love. Climbing 4 notches to number 34 on Casey's Top 40, this is Bonnie's first Top 40 hit, a song from the CD Luck of the Draw. It's called Something to Talk About.
Number 7.
Edging up a notch is a woman who's sold millions of albums over the years and won 4 Grammys. But until now, she's never had a Top 40 hit. Bonnie Raitt with Something to Talk About.
Bonnie Raitt was a showbiz kid. She was born in Burbank, California, grew up in the L.A. area and New York City, and now she lives in the Hollywood Hills. Her hit, Something to Talk About, slips and slides on down 3 to number 8.
Hits from coast to coast.
He had his first number 1 album on the very first Billboard album chart. And his daughter had her first number 1 album 14 weeks ago. And that's when we said Nat King Cole and Natalie Cole were the first parent and child to both have a number 1 album. But a longtime friend of AT40, Steve Pagari in Northport, Florida, almost found another. That almost is Bonnie Raitt and her father. Bonnie hit number 1 last year with her album Nick of Time, and her father, John Raitt, was a big star of Broadway and movie musicals. Now, while he didn't have his own solo number 1 album, he did sing on this one. Way back in 1945, the first year of the Billboard album chart, John Raitt sang on the original Broadway cast album of Carousel. It was number 1 for 6 weeks in 1945. So call John Raitt and his daughter Bonnie a footnote in the category of parent and child with number 1 albums. Bonnie's at number 19. A couple of weeks ago, Bonnie Raitt brought her father John out on stage at the last show of her American tour here in Southern California. Bonnie's hit, Something to Talk About, slips 11 to number 19.
Casey's Top 40.
I'm Mark Elliott, counting them down for Casey Kasem, and we don't stop till we hit the top.
Number 25.
Sliding 6 notches is blues singer Bonnie Raitt. She titled her latest CD Luck of the Draw because she's been feeling pretty lucky lately. Lucky for selling over 3 million copies of her last album, Nick of Time. Lucky for surviving substance abuse. And lucky for her new marriage.
American Top 40.
And you're with The Shadow. So let's talk about control. Most people want control in their lives. Singer Janet Jackson made a whole album based on it. But a lot of artists, especially new artists, lose it or end up surrendering control of almost everything they do to agents, managers, and accountants. But not the singer at number 25. She's been around for more than 20 years, and as the daughter of a successful musical comedy star, Bonnie Raitt saw her own father give up that control in his career. So she already had learned a lot by the time she got started.
It's real important in this business, especially if you have the value system I have. When you're raised relatively well off, you don't have a burning desire to acquire tons and tons of material wealth. And that, coupled with my political values, that people shouldn't have more than they need, or something that you don't see a lot of in this business, where people just tend to put the control of their career off in the hands of managers or accountants. And it just doesn't mesh with the way I feel I should live my life, which is basically controlling and being responsible.
You're with the Shadow on a non-stop rocket ride to number one. Now, this next singer came to Superman's rescue. It happened last year when the movie's Superman, actor Christopher Reeve, and other upstate New Yorkers asked for help to protest the construction of a coal-burning power plant right near their homes. So Bonnie Raitt put on her Wonder Woman outfit and said, "No problem, men, I'm here." Bonnie turned over a portion of the proceeds from a concert in Saratoga, New York to help the cause. She's at number 31 this week. I Can't Make You Love Me.
Casey's biggest hits.
1 year ago this week, one of the biggest hits in the USA was by the queen of the music benefit, a singer-songwriter who hasn't turned down a good cause in 25 years. She grew up in a Quaker family in Los Angeles, and because of the pacifist beliefs of the Quakers, this blues star dedicated her life to helping peaceful causes. Over the years, she's been one of the prime movers behind causes like Musicians United for Safe Energy, Artists Against Apartheid, Amnesty International, Farm Aid, and numerous concerts to help the homeless, feed the hungry, and get out people to vote. 1 year ago this week, this highly committed performer was singing one of the biggest hits in the USA.
American Top 40.
I'm Shadoe Stevens, American Top 40. You ever wonder how artists decide on songs for their albums? Bonnie Raitt told us it's the toughest part of the whole album process. She writes or co-writes some of the songs herself, but she also has to search out tunes. She says she gets tons of cassettes and listens to them in her car while she's driving around L.A. The ones with possibility, she puts in the passenger seat next to her. But the ones that don't cut it get tossed in the back seat. Probably piles up after a while. Anyway, she says it's like fishing. To find a good one is hard. Well, when Bonnie got this one from songwriters Tom Snow and Jimmy Scott, she put it on the passenger seat right next to her and drove straight to the studio. At number 21 on American Top 40, this is Love Sneaking Up on You.
Casey's Countdown.
For Casey Kasem, I'm David Perry. Now we're up to a Casey's Countdown Extra, the top 10 smash something to talk about. It's by a singer who recently won a prestigious award called a Gibson, a music award that's only given out once every 5 years. The Gibsons are given out by the world-famous Gibson Guitar Company, but they don't pick the winners. Nominees are chosen by the editors of major guitar magazines, and then the readers of those magazines vote for the winners. Unlike the Grammys and Oscars that are given out every year, the Gibsons are just given out once every 5 years. That's so a crop of new guitarists can come along and have time to make their mark. The latest Gibson Awards were given out at the end of February during a luncheon at the Hard Rock Cafe in Los Angeles. And the recipients this year included relative newcomers like Michelle Indegliocello and Chris Isaak, and guitar veterans like Eddie Van Halen and Joni Mitchell. The award for Best Blues Guitarist went to another veteran, a woman who's been playing the blues guitar for more than 25 years now. She's the woman who reached the top 10 in 1991 with this song, a Casey's Countdown Extra. Here's something to talk about by Gibson Award winner Bonnie Raitt.
People are talking. Casey's Countdown.
I'm Casey Kasem. We're on our way to the number one song on this week's Adult Contemporary chart. Well, now we're up to a Casey's Countdown Extra. It's by Bonnie Raitt, a veteran Grammy-winning singer who says she's getting off the stage for a while, putting on an apron, and getting into the kitchen. Earlier this year, Bonnie released her long-awaited live retrospective CD titled Road Tested. And she says now that that's done, she wants to get off the road to take some time off, something she hasn't done in the past 25 years. Bonnie says there are a lot of things she wants to do, including just sitting in the woods and looking at the trees. But she also wants to learn something she's never had time to pick up over the years. She wants to learn to cook. You see, Bonnie has spent most of the past 2 decades working hard on the road, eating in restaurants and living in hotels. When she married actor Michael O'Keefe back in 1991, she received lots of gifts of cookware, but most of them are still in the original boxes unopened. Bonnie says she's such a beginner when it comes to cooking that she doesn't even know how to make a salad. The lettuce always comes out looking hacked up. Her soups are often too salty, and she's constantly overcooking her vegetables. So Bonnie has decided to open all those wedding gifts and start taking classes, not to become a fancy gourmet chef, but to learn how to at least make a nice supper for her husband and friends. Of course, when it comes to making music, Bonnie's been cooking for years. This is a top 10 hit she cooked up in 1991, the year she got married. As a Casey's Countdown Extra, here's Bonnie Raitt with I Can't Make You Love Me. From 1991, that's a Casey's Countdown Extra. Bonnie Raitt with her top 10 smash, I Can't Make You Love Me. And the survey rolls on.
Casey's Countdown.
I'm David Perry, sitting in for Casey Kasem. Bonnie Raitt has been clean and sober for the past 9 years, and she says she owes her sobriety to a pop superstar, not by what he said, but by how he looked. Bonnie Raitt says she hit rock bottom in 1987. After 16 years and 9 albums, she was let go by her record company, Warner Brothers. On top of that, she was fighting what seemed to be a never-ending battle with alcohol and drugs. She says, quote, I looked and felt terrible, and then when things were at their worst, Bonnie Raitt got a call from, of all people, Prince. He told her he'd always liked her music, and he wanted to try recording a few songs with her. Bonnie says it was like being thrown a lifesaver. She said she'd be glad to go to Minneapolis to work with him. And then Bonnie began thinking. She says, quote, I knew if we were successful, I'd probably do a video with him. Now, it's one thing to go on stage if you're chunky. It's another to make a video with a guy famous for his slim body. I knew there was a relationship between drinking and being heavy, so I decided to do something about it. What Bonnie did was join Alcoholics Anonymous. She quit drinking and lost weight. And the song she worked on with Prince gave Bonnie the confidence she needed to get her career going again. Since then, she's had the biggest critical and commercial success in her career. Now the man who inspired Bonnie Raitt to clean up her life has the highest debut on this week's survey.
Casey